Welcome, physical educators. This is Thinking PE.
Because Phi Ed is more than just fun and games.
I'm Stacy Nelson,
And I'm Jamie Seneca.
and it's our goal to dig deeper beyond the activities that make your class awesome.
So buckle up and join us on this journey.
Welcome to another edition of Thinking PE. Jamie, it's been a while since we've gotten together and thought PE. What are you thinking about these days?
I'll tell you, I'm pretty super excited, because I was just looking back at some previous podcasts and realized, we've hit the 1-year anniversary since we've officially started podcasting.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy when you think about it.
And I just say officially because it's about a year since our first published podcast. We kind of toyed with the idea and recorded a few things and gathered some data before that. But so I just thought it'd be interesting just to take a step back and kind of reflect where the year's taken us, because it's 2020, but not all bad.
Right. And a lot of people are thinking back to where this year's taken them, and because there's a lot of new directions, and it is fun to think about when we first start. Well, when you and I first started talking, we were just talking PE, and we found we were just PE nerds and loved to think PE, and where our colleagues out, long past where their interests lied, you and I would just kind of keep badgering about things and all get together and talk about it. And then that kind of led to going, hey, maybe we should try to record this, or look for a hole in the community that we were trying to fill. We both had student teachers that were like, man, it'd be nice to have a good place for teachers to go to find out how to think, or how great teachers think, not just what they think. And so that's kind of where we all started. And then, man, it just changed directions and stuff. So I don't know, what do you think about it as you think about back in time like that?
I look back to it, one of the first things we did, it started a discussion between you and I about like what was important in Phi Ed, and it just became, we gave it the term priorities, PE priorities, and what, a list of 10 things, and put these in order, rank these in your top 10. And there was a good discussion between you and I, and we thought, well, let's put this out on Twitter. And I just remember we first put it out there, we were like hoping we'd get like 10 people to respond.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Just get a few other people
if a couple other people would validate what I'm saying.
That's right. If there's a few other PE nerds in the world that care to think about these kinds of things.
So, and over 100 responses later in a short amount of time, we're like, and it wasn't so much the numbers, it was the surprise. It's like, whoa, there's actually people that are engaging.
Yeah. And it's where we kind of felt like, oh, there might be some place for us in here to, I don't know, to mix and match, and not only, from our standpoint of, at that point, we weren't thinking about producing material. We were thinking about, oh, we can really learn from these people, because people are willing to share their information with us.
Oh yeah, and absolutely. I mean, initially it was selfish growth. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It's just we were looking to grow individually, and using the community to help us grow, and it just morphed into something that we took a lot of pride and passion in, of doing things as a community.
I think what you were saying earlier is that was our eye opener, that there is this community out there, and it's pretty amazing. This PE community, it's not only Twitter, but Facebook we became aware of, and there's probably some other places too we haven't tapped nearly as much, but there's people actively engaged in learning and improving all the time in our PE community, and we just kind of discovered it and stumbled upon it.
Yeah, and that's where we got to thinking, instead of us just analyzing these PE priorities, let's bring somebody else into the discussion. And when I first started, when we first started elementary, we went and observed Joe McCarthy down in Farmington, and he really helped us get started, get our feet wet in elementary Phi Ed. So we thought, well, let's bring him on an interview. So our fourth episode was with Joe McCarthy. Just talking, and that's where this idea of connection over content came in.
Yeah, that was our first C.
Yeah.
Or 3 C's that I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot, because it seems to always come back to that. But yeah, he was really huge on that connection piece. over content. That's, yeah, content's important, but boy, if you don't have the connection, that the rest of it just falls flat. So yeah, that's kind of where we kind of got this push going, oh, here's a teacher of the year who's kind of thought things through a lot, and that's where he's landed. This is important. So we kind of put that out there. Yeah.
And it matched up with our P priorities survey of relationships connection being at the top of the list.
That's
So-
right. I forgot about that. How that was an aha for us going,
Yeah.
oh, so teacher of the year, good quality teachers.
So,
Go figure.
so good quality teachers have connections with the kids. Funny how that works. So, but it grew, that's like we knew that, but then it's how that connection grew into, we talked to Sean Ryther in episode 10, and he kind of gave us the aha moment of professional connections. Yeah. And we called it surrounding yourself with good peeps.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that was it wasn't an eye opener for us. I think we kind of always knew that, but it really solidified for us and kind of gave us a direction that going, hey, while we're doing this podcast, why don't we really reach out? And we've got a platform that we can reach out to some really high quality teachers, and they can share. We've got the platform, we got the questions, they have the answers now, and now they can share, and surrounding ourselves and bringing to the forefront some of these top quality teachers we found. And so going along with that, I mean, we ended up connecting with how many teacher of the year?
4 state teacher of the years and 1 Shape America teacher of the year.
Yeah. And they weren't teacher of the year in 2020, but
yeah,
over the years, they were teachers of the year, and they were willing to share their wealth of knowledge with two guys that are just throwing together a podcast. Isn't that what was amazing to us?
What was fascinating, and this is all the teacher of the years. I will say that we talked to Justin Black for 6 months before we knew he was a teacher of the year. I mean, he didn't wear a t-shirt that says, hey, I'm the teacher of the year. And it really came out with Don Tobin. He was a Shape America teacher of the year. We talked to him in episode 18. And it was just, it was fascinating how these teacher of the years were so humble. And I think Don Tobin made the comment. He's like, well, make sure you get seconds because we're not going to be here tomorrow for the finals. When he was talking to his wife, just so humble, like I don't belong here. And
you mean when he was applying? When he was applying to be teachers of the year, he was part of the finalists, and they were going to announce the finalists the next day, and he was telling his wife or something like that, like, yeah, make sure you get seconds for this because we're not going to be here tomorrow. Like he's not going to make the cut. They're all better than me, and it was just so all the teachers here, it was just amazing how humble they were. That really, it was just fascinating and willing to serve the PE community.
Absolutely.
Really, we didn't pay anybody to spend an hour with us to record so we could put it out for the community. They're just so willing to give back to what the group, the community, I guess is a better word for it, to what the community needs. It was just pretty cool. Just not only humility, but willingness to give. It was eye-opening for me. It was actually a really good feeling. Even a pride, you might say, of our community, of that kind of attitude.
Yes, because we're in Minnesota, and he's out on the East Coast, and that was just a random email. He didn't know who we were. It was just a random email. Hey, would you mind joining us for an hour? And it was just overwhelming. So it was pretty cool. But I do want to when we talk about the three C's: connection, content, creativity. Those were really highlighted, or those came to be with our interview with Clint Lundeen in episode 12.
Yeah.
And that's those 3 C's have kind of taken us throughout the course of the entire year. It's just everything seems to fall under connection, content, and creativity in any platform of teaching. So, as we get going here, I just want to really, give Clint a shout out, because he really helped us form that.
Yeah. He's up in Cambridge, Minnesota. Good friend of mine. And again, another humble guy. If you go listen to that podcast, you'll just see how he's just all about the kids, all about that connection first. But yeah, then we kind of formulated from there, and that was a platform, the 3 C's, that it just felt like everything we learned always came back to those 3 things.
Fit right in there. So the next one, content, and that's where we reached out, sent out a bunch of emails to people that helped were on the committee for the standards, the Minnesota State Physical Education Standards. They went for a review process. So we looked up who was on that committee, sent out some emails, and got Carol Martin in episode 16 on the podcast to talk about the genius behind the standards.
Yeah. And that was a cool part where now we're reaching into the college, some of the college professors. So, again, they're part of our community, a very important part of our community, but sometimes we don't think of them because they're not teaching elementary or high school Phi-Ed.
Yeah.
But they're bringing in the new teachers that are, and so they're a critical part of of our community. And it was again really cool to see the willingness they had to spend their time and give it their knowledge. Pretty awesome.
But what struck me was, if you go back to when we taught in the same district and we were doing PLCs and we were developing the common assessments and getting frustrated because of how vague the Minnesota State standards were. And we're just give us the test. Come on, give us just spell it out. What is, just nitpicking words because they're so vague. And Carol's like, the reason they're vague is because you're a professional. We want you to be able to do, like, oh, that makes sense.
That was a fun aha, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I get it. You want us to use our brain.
Yeah. The genius behind the standards is they're intentionally vague to allow you the autonomy to teach them how you see fit. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah,
and how much easier since then, because in Minnesota, we're still moving towards those standards and teaching towards the standards. And that's kind of where we start our lessons is, does it meet a standard and which standards are you meeting? And standard. But since that podcast and having that aha, having that vague language is so freeing, going, oh, I'm so glad they chose that verbiage compared to if they'd have just made it real strict. And now I got to restrict my content to fit a very small definition. No, it's opposite. They're just use it so I can hit that standard in several different ways now. So that's been freeing for me in a big way, even as we've gotten back to teaching back with the kids back in school.
Another standard writer was Christy Malley from Winona State, episode 27, and very similar. It was a great conversation. Just talking about how these standards were created and the why behind them. Yeah,
it's fun to listen to the people that really put the time in to develop them, and they weren't just thrown out. They didn't just kind of get together for a day and hey, let's figure this out. Man, they worked really hard and to make them very applicable, for sure. And she's been super supportive of the podcast in general. It's been kind of fun to.
Yeah, and that ties right back into the connection part, the professional connection with when she started the PE cadre with her students to gather. I mean, similar to what we were trying, just gather information from around the state with this whole idea of distance learning and helping her college students that she's preparing to send out in the field.
Yeah, I think that's so wise. Get these kids connected with teachers that are got their hands dirty, so to speak. They're in the trenches doing it, and that's current information coming. And she's just so wise with the way she runs those classes and preparing those students down there.
But while we're hitting on the 3 C's here, we got connection, content. I want to chat about creativity because those are some of the fun. I thought some of the fun ones to talk about when we again, another random email. We just happen to follow Mike Ginicola out in New York.
Yep.
A huge Twitter following and huge presence online with things that he created, and just a creative mind. And I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've probably saw his stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers or used some of his stuff that he's posted on posted on social media during distance learning. But it was just interesting listening to how he dreamed up, superhero choose your own adventure type things.
Yeah. And there again, he's so willing to come and spend time with us and share what he's gotten. His website's just full of free stuff, and there's some ways you can, if you appreciate his creativity, you can get him some money, and that's pretty cool. But so much of it he offers for free, and it just again, those take hours. You and I have putzed with putting some of those together. It takes some time. It's really hard to put that together.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but he had those the concept of gamifying.
Yes.
And taking a simple activity And I wasn't, I got, full disclosure, I wasn't even familiar with the term gamifying of what that even was, and it was just taking a simple activity and almost making, the video game where you get these tokens to go to this level, to go to the next level. And he just took something like jump rope where, you start out, and I think his first one or something, he started out with the military. You start out as a private, then you're a private first class, then you're a lance corporal, then you're a corporal, and you're progressively increasing earning credits,
Yeah.
or completing challenges.
Yep.
I just thought that was fascinating. And I actually use that extensively in my classes now.
Yeah. It's taken the psychology that these the people that write the programs for the games that are most popular in the world, it's just taking that psychology and applying it to make your class more engaging. And there's just, again, using his creativity, lots of different ways to do it and apply it. And it was neat of him to share that with us, because it's changed the way I think about a lot of my units as well.
Yeah. And so he was in episode number 8, and then we had an opportunity to talk to Randy Spring, homegrown Minnesota Phi-Ed teacher, in episode 19, who later became a teacher, this year teacher of the year for MnShape, Minnesota Shape America.
Yeah.
And same thing. He had a huge presence online with videos and resources that you can use. And it's just fun to get into their minds and how they create those things. And,
Yep.
What was interesting, what he talked about, he was so humble. And then we chatted with him before the teacher of the year, and just how he was giving so much credit to his team, he may have the presence, but it's collectively the other Phi-Ed teachers in his building and in his district. Yeah.
Yeah. Another example of that, like you were saying, with just the humility, and flat out, he's a great teacher and has a ton of good ideas, but the humility and the willing to share and make the whole community better, not even just his class, not even just his building or his district. He's wanting all of Phi-Ed to be lifted up with the creativity he's willing to share.
So, and I think we'll springboard into what you came up with, the hashtag 6 feet PE. And
give me credit for that, huh?
I'm going to, because that was we had a few downloads, and we were seeing some, getting some good listens and a lot of interest. And then COVID hit, and we were all forced into this distance learning thing, and the idea of staying 6 feet apart. And that's when things really grew, and that's when there was a need for new information, and we saw it in our numbers, how we doubled and tripled our downloads.
Yeah, when you talk about doing this podcast to kind of just reflect, that's one of the things that I thought about was, we kind of started with us two talking heads, and we enjoy it, and okay, we'll record, and then realizing, okay, we don't have enough knowledge between us to fill any gaps anywhere. So we'll talk to some people that do teachers of the year. We'll do some interviews, and that's kind of the way we thought we'd go. And all of a sudden, this COVID hit, and there's this.
Nobody knows anything.
Well, yeah, it put everybody on a level playing field. There's no experts.
I was going to say everybody became an expert because there was no experts.
In some ways, you could maybe say it that way too. Yeah, but it was but all of a sudden everybody's hungry. And I'm sure people that have never been on Twitter and on Facebook looking for PE stuff before, I bet you a huge percentage of now PE teachers were going, what the stink am I going to do if I got to teach PE and keep kids 6 feet apart? Why don't I go out and find out what people are saying? And it just created a place for us to, again, reach out further and say, hey, instead of having just one expert, let's get 20, from around not only around the country, but around the world. That's the beauty of Zoom and the new technology. We could expand and now meet people from all around the world, teachers, PE teachers from around the world. I mean, as a matter of fact, we hit, 54 countries we hit, or
54.
We hit. I say that like we had a goal. I mean, no, but we have downloads from 54 countries, and at least one download from every state. It's just like not a goal of ours, but as somebody that put this together and we put a lot of time and effort into editing and doing these things. It was kind of cool that, okay.
Yeah, and I say we said, I forget what the last state was. It wasn't Alaska. I forget what the last state was, but I remember we were sitting on 49 for a while, just kind of waiting for that last. Gosh, what was that last state? Well, you know, it wasn't Hawaii, it wasn't Alaska. Neither here nor there, but it was kind of exciting.
Yeah. Again, it wasn't something neither of us strived for, ever even thought we'd accomplish. And then even beyond that, the countries are the ones that amazes me. I got countries that I didn't even know they existed. Oh, there's somebody from that country that downloaded our podcast, but it wasn't about you and I. It wasn't those. It was these ones from #6feetPE, where there was a community or a group of teachers talking about a specific topic of how are we going to solve this problem. And that reminds me of Tom Roberts, you know, his quote of, hey, if you put 20 PE teachers in a room, they'll solve just about any problem you have, you know, maybe not in the world, but as far as PE problems. And that's what it felt like. It was like we had up to 27, I think, people on at one time, and people are just throwing their ideas out. And you can see why those were popular downloads, our most popular ever, because it's not just you and I just blabbering. These are real people. And, you know, you talk to teachers, there's so many good teachers. They all have good ideas.
And it was so refreshing because COVID was very easily, and distance learning, it was very easy to get caught in a rut of the negative.
Yes.
Of coming up with 50 reasons why something won't work.
Mm-hmm.
And we started with standard one. How are you going to teach physical skills virtually? And
right.
and we started with, that's how we started those podcasts, was let's get past all the things we can't do. How are we going to do it?
Yeah, we're not going to start recording until we get past that part.
Yeah, and
all of a sudden, why you can't.
All of a sudden, somebody would say, you know, one little snippet of well, you know, we could have the kids make jump ropes, or we could do, and then all of a sudden the ideas just started coming.
Yep.
And I just thought that was just a tribute to the community, and exactly what Tom Roberts, our Minnesota State MnSHE president, just what he said. You get 35 teachers in a room, and they'll figure it out. And that's exactly what the group did.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to hear that, because there often started with some, here's the situation I'm in. Here's the situation. I can't do this. And my administration won't let me do that. And I can't use equipment because if one kid doesn't have it, we can't do it, blah, 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 blah. But then as soon as somebody cracked that and went positive, man, the snowball effect, and we could do this. And I tried that. And I bet you this would work. And it was so fun to hear that positive snowball go.
You know, and then so it was what the other part that I liked is then we brought it right back to one of the first episodes we did with the priorities. And we said, prior to distance learning, we found that relationships was one of the highest priorities for teachers. Is that the same? And we found, okay, virtually it is. So then it became, okay, we're hearing that building relationships, connection in our 3 C's is so important. How do we do that virtually?
Yeah.
And again, we've had a lot of conversations with Justin Black down there in New Mexico.
Yes. You
know, using Flipgrid, and it was just all the different ways of opening up the chat in Flipgrid was an eye opening for me. That you have the kids that, and if anybody's listening and you use, I'm going on 2 different tangents here. So using Flipgrid and then live meetings in Zoom, or live meetings, whether it's Zoom or Google Meets. And I just remember, you know, if you're listening, if you've done a live class and you've had the chat open, you've had some kid hold down the A button. Or, you know, some kid, right, you know, just type in 15, you know, a hello with 14 O's on the end. And Justin just kind of explained that, how it's a culture that you have to set. And Christy Malley's, you know, same thing. It's a culture. It's a culture that you have to set. And it's no different than if you ask a class in the gym and kids are blurting out answers. You haven't set the culture.
Yeah.
And it's no different. Virtually, you have to set that culture. And, you know, we're looking for ways to build relationships. Why would you close the chat and take away one of those ways to build relationships?
Yeah. And instead of creating the culture where you can use it for the good. Yeah. I love it. I love teachers that think like that. We don't have to just run from things. We can run at them and solve the problem. And these kids can be taught, and so can some teachers.
And that's where the concept of 6 feet PE came in, was how are we going to teach Phys Ed and social distance?
Right.
How can that even be done? And again,
Right.
and going back to what you were saying, I mean, we could come up with 50 different ways that it's not going to work. And we interviewed three teachers in my district from Carver Elementary. They have 3 classes in the gym at once. They have 90 kids in the gym.
Yep.
And it was their growth mindset that really struck me, of their growth mindset and their collaboration.
Yep.
Of how they're gonna approach that.
Yeah, that was a fun interview, hearing them, because they have, like you said, over 90 kids in a classroom, so they really have to think outside the box and do things just a little bit different, for sure. What do we think about next year? You had another thing that was on your mind. I know we maybe should have scripted this, but we did. So
no,
what's it? You had something else you were going to bring up.
I just keep going back to all the people that we've met, and that's probably been the most impactful for me. And especially in those jam sessions, and things that I've taken. Like we talked in episode 11 of 6 Feet PE. We talked to Mark Ricketts was on there.
Oh yeah,
and I'm always looking for activities in K1 and 2 and adding literature into Phys Ed. And Mark Ricketts kind of chatted about that and then what was it? The next the next 6 Feet PE, we find out that he's actually an author. It was just so
on that topic.
Yeah, on that topic, and reading books to kids, and reading books to kindergarten, first, second to elementary kids, and having them act out the characters. Yeah. And and I actually did that a couple of times in distance learning, where I would read a story to the kids, and we were virtual, and they at home, they would have an opportunity. It was awesome in kindergarten and first grade. They had a lot of fun acting out the different animals and acting out the story.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. He's not just an author that has a couple books on his desk if people want them. These are on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I mean, they're the full-fledged author. And yeah, he wasn't going to bring it up. We
had to pull it out of him.
Drag it out of him. Yeah, these are such great people that we've been able to meet over the course of the year. That's probably been the biggest booster for me as I look back. Just that I feel more part of the community, and I feel better about the community. That, man, we have some fabulous people out there. And if I ever do run into another problem in my classroom, I know I can put it out there. Yeah. And there's going to be, number one, people willing to help, and number two, people qualified to help. So that's been a big thing. And then just kind of the friendships we started through it. And that's where I'd love to grow more and meet even more people. If you're listening to this, and we put out an advertisement where we're going to do a jam session, which is kind of our current version of the hashtag 6 Feet PE. Man, I'm hoping you'll join. I'm hoping people listening to this would be willing to jump in with us and not be intimidated, and really be able to just join us, and it'd be fun to meet you. That's been a big part of it.
It really is. And that's kind of the direction we started going now, is back to the gyms and trying to tackle some of these topics that have come up. Like, we would see something on social media that seems to get a lot of interest. And the first one that we did was teacher participation. And what I really took away from that is not to take a side one way or the other, but the whole philosophy of thinking PE was just to take the topic and think deeply about it. Just find all the angles and answer the why, because what works in one school might not work in the other school for a variety of factors, and that doesn't mean somebody's right or somebody's wrong.
And that's a big point, I guess I'd like to drive home with. Hopefully that comes across in all of our podcasts. We're not doing any topic to try to show somebody's wrong or whatever. Even you mentioned in the 3 C's, there's just such a variety of ways. Yeah, good teaching involves, connecting with the students and having good content, and having that creativity, but it looks different in every teacher. It's according to what you have available to you, what you have for your own skills, what your principal's limiting you to, what you're, all those different variety. It's never our intent to to take a topic like you just mentioned, the one on the teacher participation, where should a teacher participate with their class or not? That's not our decision to,
Yeah.
but we like to bring it up and think about it. And if you do, why? And I want to know why good teachers do, and I want to know why good teachers don't. So I guess I wanted to put that out there just because all these things are, yeah, we think they're important, but if you don't do something that we've said that we're big on for whatever reason, that doesn't make you a bad teacher. That doesn't, we want to be this kind of a conduit for conversation, not a condemning, podcast in any way, shape, or form, for sure. So
Yeah,
sorry, I got on a tangent there. I just
No,
thought,
and it was a good one because I'd like to add to that. Just when we take all those teacher of the years that we've chatted with, no two of them are the same. They're
Right.
all different teaching styles, different. I mean, they're all very different, and in their journey, how they became a teacher of the year, and just in their journey of how they became a great teacher.
yep,
And I think everybody's they're strong in all three areas, but they make connections with students differently. They teach different content based on their equipment, based on student interests in
Yeah.
geographical regions.
Yeah.
And different creative minds.
yeah. So I hope that comes across in our podcasts, through and throughout, and even into the future, that this isn't the place for condemnation. This is the place for thinking PE and thinking, getting behind the scenes of why great teachers do some of the things. And that's what we found. When there's arguments, why you would or wouldn't use squads, or why you wouldn't use different things, we found fabulous teachers on both sides of the spectrum. And that's what's super intriguing to me.
Yeah.
I like to discuss it.
Yeah. So
So-
if you're listening to this, we'd love to have you on these new PE jam sessions.
Yeah. Well, and we'll put out the advertisement usually through Facebook and Twitter, but it'd be cool. And maybe we need to shift the times around so we can get more people from different countries. And because that's also super interesting when we have some of these people joining us, and a shout out to them because they probably have had to either stay up late or get up early to join us, for sure.
So to wrap
So-
this up, I guess I just want to really, really give a shout out and a thank you to the community as a whole, and especially those that have joined us, whether it was a jam session, an interview, or a hashtag 6 feet PE.
Yeah, for sure. It's been cool to get to know people, and it's the lifeblood of what we are doing here at Thinking PE. So with that, we want to kind of wrap up. Any other final thoughts for what you've gained or learned over the whole year?
I guess I would start that the 2020 wasn't all bad.
Yeah,
And there's definitely, and that's not to downplay some of the suffering and
it was hard.
hardships that people have experienced, but through that we've also learned a lot. And that's you try to find the best in things, and we've been very fortunate in that matter to be surrounded by a great community. So a shout out there. The big my overarching theme for the year is those 3 C's. That great teaching is broken down into 3 C's: connection, content, and creativity.
And that, Jamie, is Thinking PE.
Connect with us on Facebook and Twitter at Thinking PE. Find us on all your favorite podcast providers by searching Thinking PE. For more resources and videos, go to www.thinkingpe.com. Thanks for listening.